Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files Reacts. We are back with some Yellowjackets coverage for you, and I'll be going over episodes 4 through 6 of Season 3. Now, obviously, usually Gabe does these episodes with me, but we have both had a hellish couple of weeks, and Gabe was not able to catch up in time to get this episode out. And I wanted to get it out pretty quickly because people were actually asking for Yellowjackets, so I wanted to make sure that I got this out in time. But he will be coming back for episode 7. I believe we'll do episode 7 on its own, and probably 8 on its own, and then maybe do 9 and 10. We'll see how it all works out, but he'll be back for the next one. But yeah, he's been working 12-hour days, literally. And I meant to get this episode out much sooner. I was going to do it on my own about a week ago, and I was going to cover just episodes 4 and 5. But I had some dental surgery the other week, and I thought it was only going to take me the weekend to recover. But it's actually taken me much longer than I thought it would. And today is kind of the first day where I can actually talk and whatnot. And yeah, it was absolutely awful. Imagine not being able to talk for an entire week and a half now it's been. Especially for like an extroverted podcaster like me. It was literally hell incarnate. So I'm extremely happy to be in front of a camera again so that I can cram all of my thoughts and opinions into your ear holes once again. So let's enjoy that together. Even though this is more of a video than our usual podcast episode, I just don't have a lot of time to do a lot of like flashy editing on this one. So feel free to stick the phone in your pocket and just listen, or whatever you usually do for our podcast episodes. With that, let's go on to some general thoughts from these 3 episodes. So kind of going over my thoughts for Season 3 so far, I think it's an absolute hit. I think that Season 2 was pretty good, not as good as the first season. I didn't really like how in Season 2 they got rid of a lot of the seemingly supernatural elements. Like, we still don't really know if it's like all in their head, or if there is like really a supernatural presence. But they're going ahead with that a lot more in this season than they were in Season 2. I feel like we kind of lost that for a while. And that was one of my favorite parts of the show, is not really knowing what's supernatural and what is just trauma and, you know, mental things going on with our cast. So I'm really glad to see that the supernatural elements are back in full force. But yeah, overall, I just think Season 3 is just probably a lot better than Season 2. Not that Season 2 is terrible. Like, I enjoyed Season 2, but I just think Season 3 is better in almost every way, except for the fact that we don't really have Natalie anymore, which is really a huge bummer. So we've been seeing atrocities committed by these girls for a while now. And, you know, it's kind of been escalating and escalating and escalating and escalating. But now in Season 3, we see them enjoying it, especially young Shauna. Like, she is really crazy in the past timeline. Same with Melissa. She's wild, and you see them kind of embracing this darkness. And we've seen that in present day too. I like the idea that these girls, you know, they get stranded out in the wilderness, and all of these awful, awful things happen that nobody should have to endure. And they have to do what they have to do to survive. But now we're seeing it really, really consume them. At least some of them, not everybody, not Natalie, which is funny because when we see Natalie in present day, she is by far like the most affected. Like, she's become like a drug addict and all this stuff. And Shauna was able to separate herself from all that and like raise a family and be like fairly normal. And then we do see some scenes with adult Shauna where she's like butchering this like rabbit or something. I think that was in season 2, where she's just like brutally killing this little furry creature, or maybe it was a squirrel or something. And so we see like these little moments of darkness in her, but it's kind of funny how it flip-flops, where Natalie is the most level-headed in the past storyline, and then in the future storyline she's like super messed up. Obviously she's dead now in the future timeline, but yeah, it's interesting to see how all of that works, and I'm really curious how they're gonna tie together these two things, because not the women that we see in the present day storyline, or the future timeline, or whatever you want to call it, like, they're all super messed up, but it's a very different tone than it is in the past timeline. The future timeline is funny, there's humor, there's them kind of enjoying their lives to some extent. And in the past timeline, it is so far the other direction that I'm kind of wondering how these two things are eventually going to meet in the middle. Because of course I'm sure they get back and there's a whole like rehabilitation period where they're trying to get over their trauma and everything. But it just seems that the adult Yellowjackets are very different than their younger selves. So I'm interested to see how they kind of bridge that gap as the girls, when they get back to society. I hope we see that, and how they kind of reintegrate and all that. And I'm hoping it gets explained a little better as we get closer to the end of the show. I hope it gets explained how they kind of turn into who they are today. I don't know if we'll see that fully, but I hope it gets explained in some way, shape, or form. Now, we still haven't seen adult Melissa. We know that Hilary Swank was cast for season 3 and is still an unnamed character. And I think that she would be Melissa. She certainly fits the casting. But I don't know how they go about continually introducing more adult Yellowjackets. It just doesn't really make sense that, in all these conversations that the characters have had, all the times that they've been sitting around a table together, how have they never brought up like, oh, like, did you hear like where Melissa went? Or even Lottie, before we knew Lottie was back, like, we never heard anything about her leaving to go be in a cult, but it seems like everybody knew that. They just hadn't expressed that on screen. And I think that's kind of one of the, I don't know, like, minor immersion breaking parts of the show, is that I kind of get the feeling that the producers or the writers are bringing in characters as they see fit, which is fine. I like the reveals, and I like oh, that person's still alive and stuff. But in a realistic way, it's hard to wrap my brain around the idea, like, really, you guys never have talked about like any of these other girls that are still alive or anything. And I think that's a shame. Like, I don't think they need to give us a monologue and a huge list of everybody that's still alive. But I think there is a little bit of a disconnect there, I would say. So then my last general thought is that in episode 6, we get a big reveal. Someone from the outside world has found them, and I'm eager to see where this goes, because I was just starting to wonder how long they would be able to prolong the past timeline before it got really stale. And I wonder if now that these people are here, if the past timeline will follow the girls reintegrating into society. However, there are some scenes that we've had flash forwards to in like season 1, like one of the first I think one of the first scenes of season 1 is them like chasing a girl and like stringing her up by her feet and like gutting her and all this stuff. And we haven't seen that yet. So I almost wonder if this won't be the way that they actually get home. I think that this will probably be a chance for them to get home, and one of them is going to blow it because they'll be like, oh, they saw what we did, and we have to like kill them. I don't think that these bird watchers or whatever they are going to live through this. So because I think even then we might have heard about them in the present timeline, but maybe not. I could be wrong, but I don't think that this is actually how they get home, but I think it is their first step on the way to getting home, if that makes sense. So let's go episode by episode and look at some of these notes I have. Episode 4 is called 12 Angry Girls and One Drunk Travis. And I don't really know what this meant as a title, because I don't remember Travis ever being drunk. So I think that's kind of an interesting title. Maybe I'd have to go back through the episode and kind of see what it's referencing. But the girls walk Coach back to camp. Now, in the previous episode, at the very end, we saw Coach Ben get taken by the girls. Was it Mari that led them out to where Coach was staying in the cave? And I think that's when they had like all the visions and everything, and they took Coach and brought him back to camp. So Natalie decides to put on this whole trial, which is super laughable. I think there was a lot of like really interesting people or a lot of interesting things that everyone said when they were like up on the stand. But it was so funny how like Natalie didn't know some of the like technical names of some of these court proceeding things. And she was just like, I don't know what that means. And they kind of had to make it up as they go. The biggest thing about this trial that I thought was ridiculous is how they stuck to needing the 2/3 majority. And it's like, when they first voted, they had a majority keeping Coach alive. But they just couldn't let go of the 2/3 thing. They're like, we got to do it exactly how they do it in the court system. And I just thought that was weird, because I liked it. I liked the scenes. But I was just like, it just doesn't match anything else they've been doing out in the woods. Like, everything else has been, very like spiritually motivated, and what does the wilderness want us to do, and all this stuff. And so it was weird that they kind of brought this like mock trial into it. I thought it was funny that Misty actually kind of did a good job defending Coach Scott. I think she did everything that she could possibly do, and it was really touching at the end there where she asked Coach why did you become a coach? Like, why didn't you go do literally anything else? And Coach admits that he didn't really ever want to become one. He just took it because it was a job, and he ended up working there for a long time because he was just kind of like stuck there. But he came to recognize that the girls were relentless. He says annoyingly relentless, and that they were underdogs, and that he likes underdogs because he is one. He says that if he wanted to hurt them, he would have turned them in after a night of drinking, when they were out all night and everyone was puking in the morning. And then I guess he told the hotel manager that he was the one that had thrown up in all the rooms and everything. Or he would have told Thais's parents about her and Van when they got caught in the parking lot. Or he would have put Misty on the team because she would have been hurt and bullied for not being good enough. And so it's kind of in these final moments, seemingly, that we get with Coach Ben, we see that even back then, in his own way, he cared for someone like Misty, where he's like, if I put her on the team, she's going to get bullied by everyone else because she's not going to be good enough, and she's going to get hurt on the field and all this stuff. And so he made her, he wanted to make sure she was included in the team somehow, so he made her the towel girl or water girl or whatever. And so it's interesting to see how he's looked out for them this whole time, even as they hunt him down and try to kill him. You know, he talks about, or Misty asks him, like, you know, why would he just let Mari, or maybe she's asking Mari, she's like, why would he just help you out of the pit that you fell in? Why wouldn't he leave you down there to die? Like, he wanted to help you and save you, and he took you back to his cave. He didn't hurt you, but he couldn't let you go. So, like, what did you want him to do? And so I think it's just interesting looking back on everything he's done. And he even admits, he's like, I shouldn't have run away. You guys needed me and all this stuff. And everybody is tearing up. I thought for sure that Coach Ben was going to be, you know, reintegrated back into the group, and that, you know, everybody was going to be okay with him. But I will come back to this at the end of this section. So in present day, Shauna finds out that her brakes just went out. They weren't tampered with or anything like that. They just went out, which I think is really interesting. And I wonder if that's true, or if somebody was able to rig the brakes to make them look like they just went out. And Jeff says that it's karma, and he goes a little crazy doing all these like extra good things to earn karmic points, like it's Fallout New Vegas or something. And I love this honest moment where, like, people are looking at him and they're like, Jeff, like, we don't need karma. Like, we just need to, like, figure this out. And he has, like, this honest moment where he, like, looks at them and he just looks exhausted and tired. And he says, I just need to do some good. And Shauna has, like, a heartfelt moment where she's like, okay. And she, like, goes up and hugs him. And she's like, we're going to go volunteer and all this stuff. So I won't stick around on this too long because it didn't really have much to do with the rest of everything. But Thaisa and Van go around leaving Queen of Hearts cards on the ground, hoping that somebody will pick it up and that the wilderness will choose them to die. And I think this is so heinous, getting the heat kind of pulled off of them and onto some unsuspecting victim. This guy picks it up and they follow him to his apartment. And I'm not sure if they were going to be the ones to kill him or if they were just hoping to see something happen to him, like the other guy getting hit by the bus or whatever. But Van, when it comes time to do it, Van says that she doesn't want to live like this and she just wants to enjoy whatever time they have left. So somewhere in the middle of all this, Lottie, or Thaisa calls Lottie, I think, and Lottie is kind of like on her way to go do something. Meanwhile, Shauna and the family are at the nursing home that Misty works at, and Shauna gets stuck in the freezer. And guess who shows up but Ghost Jackie? Jackie kind of torments her for a while. She's only there for a short period of time. And she asks Shauna, so did you become the person you always wanted to be, or did you become this? And believe me, guys, that question sent me into an existential crisis for the rest of the night. If you're in your 30s, you know what I'm talking about. Shauna gets let out of the freezer by the guy that works there and immediately blames Misty, but Misty left hours ago. So who locked her in the freezer? Could it have been Melissa? Could it have been somebody else? Could it have been the wilderness or it or whatever they call it? But yeah, something happened, and I'm really curious to find out what all of this has been about. But I did love Jeff playing bingo or whatever with everybody and just being the life of the party and telling, you know, crude jokes and all sorts of stuff, and everybody just loving him. I think Jeff needed a win, and I'm so glad he got it. So later that night, Jeff gets home, Shauna left and all that. And she is trying so hard to meet Jeff halfway, and she finds a duplicate cat to the one that was on the poster from earlier. He had this poster that was like missing cat or whatever. He's like, I'm gonna find that cat. Shauna went all over New York to try to find this cat, and she found one that looked exactly like the one on the poster. And he's about to tell her, like, Shauna, we can't do that. Like, that's not how karma works. Like, you can't just, like, try to give this, like, duplicate cat to the owners or whatever. But he has a change of heart because he sees that she is trying so hard to be a part of what he's doing. And so he hugs her and he tells her that indeed the cat looks exactly the same as the one that was missing. So after earlier, Taissa takes Van to Central Park so that Van can buy her a pretzel and ride the horse carriage. And my God, Linger by the Cranberries plays. I love that song so much, you have no idea. It works in every single scene that I've seen it in any show. But yeah, this is a great scene where they just have like kind of this quiet moment. And Van's hand starts to shake, and it kind of alludes to the idea that she's not totally out of the woods yet. And this is what the whole thing with the Queen of Hearts was earlier, is, you know, Taissa wants more time with Van. And, you know, she wants to, like, be able to prolong the cancer or get it away completely. And she thinks that by giving the wilderness what it wants, then, you know, that's how that will work. So we kind of see here that, you know, maybe her cancer isn't completely gone. Now, the question for this episode, and what'll be brought up later, is what was Taissa doing in between the time where they did the whole Queen of Hearts thing and when they did this whole pretzel and horse-drawn carriage thing? Because there was an hour where Taissa was gone and where she separated from Van, and Van went to Central Park and Taissa went and did whatever she did. And at the end of this episode, we see that Lottie dies. And nobody knows who did it. They don't know if it was an accident or if she was pushed or what. And it'll get brought up later that, you know, Van kind of wonders if Taissa went and killed Lottie to give the wilderness what it wants. You know, maybe Taissa went out on her own because it was Van who did not want to do the Queen of Hearts thing anymore, but Taissa still did. So I kind of wonder if she was like, all right, I'll just sacrifice Lottie. And I'm really curious to see how that all unfolds. Now, the episode ends with Lottie dying, but other than that, the episode ends with everybody casting their vote, either for or against Coach Ben. I kind of talked about this, where they need a 2/3 majority. And they do this multiple times because they can't reach 2/3. And Shauna convinces everyone to vote against Coach in what may be the stupidest argument I've ever heard. He had just won everybody over. Everybody was super teary-eyed. And then she's like, but he burned down the cabin. And everyone's like, yeah. And I'm just like, I don't know. Is it lazy writing, or is it just the mindset that these girls are in? Like, I'm not really sure. It kind of seems a little lazy to me. And then Melissa goes up to Shauna and basically congratulates her. And she's like, do you see what you did? She's like, that's power. And so I'm wondering, like, where did this darkness from Melissa come from? Like, why is she egging on Shauna and trying to get her to be this miserable person? I just don't understand, especially because we don't really get much of Melissa until this season. So I'm not really sure, like, what her motivations are or anything like that. But it's certainly an interesting kind of relationship, and I'm so curious what modern day Shauna thinks of the whole Ben situation, because we find out later, Natalie is the one to finally kill him. But Shauna really got him there. And we'll start episode 5, titled Did Tai Do That? Because I want to talk about what happens to Coach Ben next. He is strapped to a log and tries to earn Akila's trust. The girls talk about what to do with him and decide that whoever draws the King of Hearts will shoot him. Van calls it the Suicide King, and so I wonder if the King of Hearts will, kind of play a part in the future timeline like the Queen of Hearts did in the last season. Thais is the one that draws the king. She tries firing the gun at a tree for practice, but can't bring herself to do it, and Van suggests that she tries to summon her sleepwalking self to do the deed. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about what happens to Coach Ben is I forgot it happens at the end of the episode, not the beginning of the episode, but Shauna and Melissa come in and cut his Achilles tendon. And it's maybe one of the most awful things I've seen on this show. Even like all the cannibalism and everything, like just going up and cutting his Achilles. And so he can't walk anywhere. And we see how miserable he gets for, the rest of, episode 6. And it's just crazy. Like, there is some darkness in those two girls that, again, we do see in the present timeline, but just, like, not as much. And so I'm really curious, how the future timeline Shauna would look back on all of this stuff and what she would say about it. So adult Misty goes looking for Lottie's body and finds all of this, random stuff under her fingernails, like some granite from the wall that she scraped as she fell by it, and like some hair and like maybe some other stuff. I don't know, when she maybe she dug her hand into their arm or something like that. And so there's all this stuff under her fingernails that she puts in a bag, and she takes Lottie's belongings and some morgue photos. Misty tells the others, and they all say Misty did it. They're like, well, yeah, clearly you did it, right? And she's like, no, what are you talking about? So Misty goes through Lottie's stuff, but her phone isn't there. So where is her phone? It is back at her parents' house, which we find out is like this penthouse, and we'll see her go there in a little bit and try to uncover some stuff. So Shauna starts tailing Misty to see what she's up to, but Walter is tailing Shauna not very well at all. And Shauna and Walter team up to try to solve the murder. Misty tracks down Lottie's dad, who has dementia, and she convinces him that he knows her, and to let her in, she needs to find a package in Lottie's room. As she backs up to Lottie's jacket, she finds, a receipt in the pocket. And then as she's looking around, she turns a corner and she sees that Walter is there with Shauna hacking into Lottie's internet history. And they are posing as Wi-Fi operators, like they work for the Wi-Fi company. And so I think it's super funny. They're putting on this whole ruse for the dad because he has no idea what's going on. The whole thing is just very funny. So back in the past, Ben gets his last meal. It's a giant fish with veggies, but he never really gets to eat it, I don't think. Young Misty tells him that she'll miss him, and Lottie takes Akila and Travis back to the cave so that Akila can get another vision. And she has a vision of Coach Ben being a bridge that gets her across a chasm, and on the other side was civilization. Now, at the end of the episode, Coach is strapped to a tree and they're about to shoot him, but the others charge in and save him, and they tell everyone that he is their bridge home. But Shauna and Melissa then go and cut his Achilles tendon, and I was just like, what the hell is going on here? Back in the present day, Walter grabs some of Shauna's hair from her hat. I thought that was interesting. He's probably going to use that at some point. And Lottie's dad has a moment where he thinks that Shauna is his daughter, and it's really sad. She gives him a hug, possibly so that he can kind of like hug his daughter for the last time while he's having this delusion. And the whole thing was really sweet. Shauna just kind of was like, okay, like I'll pretend to be your daughter for a minute. And it was a very, very touching scene. So then we get episode 6 titled Thanksgiving. So finally the cassette is coming back into play. This is the one that Callie intercepted in the mail. It was meant for Shauna, but she took it and she kind of kept it in her drawer because she didn't know how to play it. And at first I thought, oh, that's kind of funny. Like the, Gen Z or whatever kid doesn't know what a cassette tape is and she doesn't know how to like listen to it. But the reason why she didn't know how to listen to it is because it's a special kind of tape called a DAT tape, D-A-T. And so, Shauna comes back to the hotel that they're all staying in, or no, it's when they're at their house, and she tells them about, Lottie dying, and they all decide to get out of there, and Callie then is like, I'm so sorry, and like runs into her room and grabs the tape and gives it to Shauna, and she's like, I should have given this to you like a long time ago. And Shauna is like, okay, I gotta call I gotta call Van to try to figure out how we listen to this. So when Van tells Thaisa, hey, we gotta go get this DAT player so that Shauna can listen to this tape, Thaisa doesn't really seem to care. Like, she's kind of in this weird mood the past couple episodes where she's like, I'm just not gonna be involved like in any of this. And it's kind of like, I feel like Thaisa's hiding something, or like maybe the writers want us to think that she's hiding something, because she is certainly acting really strange. She tells Van that she's got enough of her own stuff going on to not care about Shauna's baggage too. And Van is just not having it. She's like, we're leaving, we're going, we're going to get her this player that she needs. In the meantime, Walter is trying to get Misty to work with him again. He gives her Lottie's trash, and in the trash, Misty finds a to-go cup for a place called Bamboo Cafe and spots Lisa outside of it. Lisa is doing deliveries, so I don't know if she like works at Bamboo Cafe or if she's just like a Uber Eats kind of person, so I'm not really sure how this all connected together. But we find out that Lottie gave Lisa $50,000, which is the receipt that Misty finds in Lottie's jacket. Lisa says that she basically took it and left and like didn't think twice about it, just bounced and got out of there. And then we find out that Thaisa met up with Lottie the day that she died outside the cafe. And I kind of wonder, could this be sleepwalking Thaisa? Because in the previous episode, we got, kind of poked and reminded of like, hey, remember, like, Thaisa does this whole sleepwalking thing. Like, there's this whole other personality that comes over her. And we even see it later in this episode where Thaisa wakes up in the middle of the night and she says, Van, help me. And so it's like, I kind of think that the Thaisa that we're seeing in every scene, where she's a lot more like uncaring and a lot more like chill, or maybe not chill, but like calm and collected and cold, I think that is actually the sleepwalking Thaisa. And the Thaisa that woke up in the middle of the night saying, Van, help me, is the real one. And speaking of this, we actually get a scene where Van is looking through her old audio hardware and she finds the DAT tape player. But this random landline that she has, I couldn't tell if it was plugged in or if it was just like in the box or what. It starts ringing, and she picks it up, and Thaisa's voice comes through, all this static and everything, asking for help and screaming and everything. But Thaisa is in the next room. It definitely like was not her in a physical sense. And so I'm wondering, are we either seeing some weird like time travel stuff, or is it the asleep version of Thaisa calling through the void? You know what I mean? I think I feel pretty good about that theory. And I think that is what's going on. Also, while all that was happening, when she picked up the phone and everything, the lights flickered. So there's definitely some supernatural stuff going on there. So probably one of the most interesting parts of the episode is Shauna leaves the hotel to go meet Van and Thaisa, and at the last minute, Callie goes up and hugs her and drops her phone in Shauna's purse. It's got like a recorder thing going on the phone, and Shauna listens to the tape with Van and Thaisa, and it says, testing, 1, 2, 3, what the hell is this? And it's a tape of the girls doing their feast ritual from the end of this episode when they're killing Ben. When you first see this scene, you don't know what it's referencing, but then as you finish the episode, you realize, oh, that was that. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, I really liked the way that they did this, because my initial note, you know, I watch through these episodes and I take notes as I'm watching, and initially my note was like, what is this on the tape recorder? Like, will we ever figure out like what these sounds were or anything? And I almost wondered if it was the night that Natalie got killed. But as you get to the end of this, you see the tape recorder, that the birdwatcher guy, you see the tape recorder hanging around his neck. And so I kind of think that as he was walking up to this whole campsite, I think he was saying to the recorder, testing, 1, 2, 3, what the hell is this? And then it picked up all the screaming and everything from the girls. And so now in the modern day, somebody is sending that to them to scare them and be, you know, kind of, I know what you did last summer kind of thing. And so I think it's really interesting. And I'm sure it's Melissa. I'm almost positive that it is from Melissa. So eventually Shauna realizes that Callie was recording the whole thing on her phone and goes to confront Callie, and she's like super mad. She's like, you better go in the other room before I do something I'm going to regret. And so Callie leaves the room, but there's a recently deleted folder, and she's able to listen to everything she recorded from the car from Shauna and Van and Thaisa. And so it's kind of funny how at the beginning of the episode, we have the Gen Z girl be like, I don't know like what a tape recorder is, or like I don't know what to do with this tape. I don't know how to listen to it. And then at the end of the episode, you get Shauna, who's like the like boomer in this situation or whatever, right? Who doesn't know enough about phones and stuff to know that there's a recently deleted folder on some of these apps and stuff. And so it's kind of funny how the writers like flip-flopped that a bit. I was like, okay, I see what you're doing. So then in the past, Coach Ben is like force-fed like this dinner because he's refusing to eat. Everybody like holds him down. And he like keeps asking to like die and everything, but nobody is willing to do it, especially not Natalie. And then in the middle of the night, Nat like wakes up and decides that enough is enough, and she goes to Coach's tent while Travis kind of like watches out for her, and she kills him as kindly as she possibly can. It was honestly a really great moment. It was like she's just like ending his suffering. He's basically been tortured for the past 2 episodes, and it's just been awful, and he's, ready to go. So then, though, as she's walking in, Travis is like, you have to hurry because the sun is coming up soon. And the next scene that we see, it's daylight, like broad daylight, and she's walking out of the pen that the coach was held in, covered in blood, holding the knife. Everybody sees it. And I'm like, what happened to the stealthy approach that you were gonna do? Like, what? Like, why did you walk out in front of everybody? Why didn't you do it real fast and then get back to your bed and be like, I don't know who did it? I just thought it was a weird decision from Natalie. Misty goes in to kind of lay him to rest and say goodbye, which is really sweet. But she also kisses him, which I thought was weird. But Natalie is in big trouble. Essentially what happens is Shauna takes over leadership and declares that Natalie will prepare the feast, and Shauna will be the new like leader of everybody, and that is just an awful idea. Shauna should absolutely not be the leader. Natalie is by far the most level-headed person, and so yeah, Natalie has to like prepare the feast and everything, and Shauna like drapes something over his face so that Natalie doesn't have to look at him. And dude, all of the cannibalization stuff is so insane because like they have chickens and stuff now, don't they? Like, do they need to keep cannibalizing people? Like, I don't think so. I think they have like livestock and stuff now, so I don't know why they're still doing the whole cannibal thing unless it's just part of the ritual. And we talked about Taissa in the present day storyline. Taissa waking up in the middle of the night saying, Van, you gotta help me, just like on the phone. Very creepy, very foreshadowing. I'm really interested to see where that goes. And then Misty gets the DNA results back from her friend. She had submitted the stuff that was under Lottie's fingernails. She had given that to this guy and asked him to like run it for her. But she has no samples to compare it to. She has no possible suspects to compare the DNA results to. So she begrudgingly sends it to Walter. And so I'm like, maybe, they'll become a team once again. I go back and forth on those characters so much. Like, sometimes I love Misty. Sometimes I'm like, what a weird character. Like, she's just like, she shouldn't be dating anybody. So I don't really know how I feel about her and Walter. So then we get what may possibly be the craziest thing that's happened yet in the entirety of the show. So Lottie is eating Ben. They're all sitting down and having their dinner. And she starts to scream. As she screams, everybody else starts screaming, and we hear screams from creatures in the wilderness, creatures of the night that are just going crazy, and it goes on and on and on. And it's hard to tell if these creature screams are happening like in the real world or if it's just in Lottie's head because she's going a little crazy. But everybody else joins in. They're like screaming and dancing and running around the campfire. And all of a sudden, this guy walks up. Just a clean looking hiker type guy. And they're all completely stunned. He walks up and says, hello. And finally, he looks over to his right and he sees the head of Coach Ben. And he shouts, fuck. And that's how the episode ends. Now, I think this guy is a bird watcher. I don't think that really matters. He's just a guy. But Van said earlier in the episode that the people that use DAT tapes are usually bird watchers for some reason. Maybe it records the bird song better. I'm not sure. But I think that's what he is doing. I've seen some other people saying that there was a second person there with him, a woman, but I didn't see her in the scene. So maybe there is, maybe there isn't. We'll know this next week when we see episode 7. But again, going into final thoughts here, I don't think these guys or this guy or whatever will be how they get back to civilization. I think they're going to kill them. If there is 2 of them. I'm just going to assume there is 2 because enough people seem to be saying that there's 2 people. I don't know if they're going to kill them or not. Like I said earlier, I think that they are going to kill these 2 because they don't want anybody to know about them murdering Coach Ben and eating him. And I'm really, really curious how all of this is going to go down. But on the scenes for next week, I think it's Van is the one that says, no, we have to go back with them. We have to go back to civilization. Because I don't know, I'd be curious. Are all of you guys ready to kind of get the wilderness timeline done with, or do you want to see them keep going in the wilderness? I kind of think that we've seen all of the crazy atrocities that there is to see out here. But like I said, there is some clips and stuff from little flash forwards and whatnot that we have not seen yet. At least I don't think we have. And there's the whole Antler Queen thing where she's, the scene where whoever is wearing the antlers with the veil and everything. And so I don't think that we're quite there yet to leave the wilderness, but I do think that this will be their first step on the way to getting back. Personally, I would love to see the wilderness arc kind of ended. I'm kind of I feel like I've seen everything that I need to see with the wilderness arc. I'm okay, I get it now. So it would be really cool to see the young Yellowjackets go back and have to reintegrate into civilization. But I'm kind of hoping they don't do the thing that Lost did, where there was a season where everybody was back in the real world and it was all fake, or it was an alternate reality or something. And so I hope that they don't do that here. I hope they commit to the bit and they're they're in the wilderness until they eventually get saved and go back. I hope they don't go back to civilization and then be we got to go back into the wilderness or something like that. I hope that it's they're in the wilderness and then they go back and they stay back. Because I think anything else would be a little bit too derivative of something like Lost, or it would just be a bad plot twist. But I'm really eager for episode 7. I'm more eager for episode 7 than I have been for a Yellowjackets episode in a long time. So yeah, I'm ready to see what happens next. And Gabe will be here next week to enjoy it with me. It's going to be absolutely crazy. And I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. Let me know down in the comments what some of your theories are, because I'm super interested to kind of see what everybody else is thinking. I'm not really sure what a lot of the common theories are out there, but I would love to learn more about it. And I think I need to I think I need to watch some YouTube videos of people talking about this episode and people who are kind of putting theories together and stuff, because I haven't really looked into the whole community, the Yellowjackets community on YouTube, like I do with some of the other shows that I watch. So yeah, I'm really eager to see where this goes. I hope you guys are too. Again, comment down below. All of our links are down in the description, like to our socials and Patreon and all that. Sorry if I was talking a little bit weird this episode. I'm still kind of getting used to having my voice back after a week and a half of not having it. And I'm also catching a cold, which is just the cherry on top of everything, as you can imagine. So I'll be back next week. Hopefully I'll sound better. Gabe will be here. We're going to have a great time. Looking forward to more Yellowjackets with you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.